Okay. Happy June 26th, celebrating sharks and the anniversary 45 years of Jaws. Hi, I'm David. This is our weekly ocean action episode. Not a boring webinar, not another Zoom, not another talking head. No, we have shark friends, we have you, we have an exciting guest today. This is our 12th episode since we were sheltered in place and snorkeling in place and doing whatever we can to survive and stay healthy and remind people to live like a shark, avoiding COVID, trying to practice precautions and educate and motivate and celebrate for healthy oceans that include sharks. Hi, I'm the director of Shark Stewards. We are a nonprofit project of the Earth Island Institute, and I founded Shark Stewards in 2006 after a voyage to the South Pacific where I experienced and documented shark finning. We are a project of the Earth Island Institute in Berkeley, and this episode, this Live Like a Shark, is about Jaws. Jaws was a very influential movie. It was arguably the first summer blockbuster directed by Steven Spielberg and launched in 1975 when I was a kid surfing. And I love this movie. I grew up in California, surfing Malibu, Topanga Beach. And I remember seeing my first shark and people were freaking out, and it was a leopard shark. It was like 6 feet long, not even 6 feet long, probably 4 feet long. And the fin was about this big. So we have a real misconception about sharks, and that was really magnified by this film, directed by Spielberg and based on a book of the same name by Peter Benchley, the late Peter Benchley, who actually was a huge shark advocate. And Peter lamented what this film did. The book is quite different. It's a great book. And it's actually a great film too, because it still lives. Paramount, I think, who produced this film is actually put out, it said live in theaters this week. I don't know where they screened it, but this is the 45th anniversary of this film that still resonates in our psyche, and in many cases in a negative sense. So Shark Stewards early on used our original logo, the white shark, to symbolize the health of the ocean. So we, instead of a shark with a red slash through it, which is popular in Stinson Beach and around Marin County, we wanted to put it on the ocean, the Pacific Ocean and the planet, and help raise awareness that these sharks are important for the health of the ocean, that they're extremely maligned, and also almost endangered or threatened. And they were almost entirely fished out off the coast of California and Mexico, where I grew up, in the Northeast Pacific Ocean, on the border of the Northeast Pacific, where we have a population of white sharks, Carcharodon carcharias. They're an amazing animal, incredibly adapted, beautiful, consummate predator, and they almost disappeared, partially because of this film, partially because of pollution. But the vendetta killings, there was actually shark tournaments in San Francisco Bay and in Southern California. Where I went to school, UC Santa Barbara, there was a white shark fishery and one off of Half Moon Bay. And this was sold as whitefish, fish and chips, and shark steaks. So we were eating these great white sharks in the 70s, late 70s and the early 80s. These sharks were also killed in the gillnet fishery as bycatch, where it's estimated the number of this population went down in the possibly less than 100, but certainly the very low hundreds. And today it still has not rebounded much beyond 1,000. It's an argument about how large the population is in the Northeast Pacific, but it certainly can't be more than 1,500 or so. Most in the population are young of year and juveniles, so they're not the mature white sharks. But we are seeing them recover, and we're also seeing more encounters. So I wanted to use this opportunity because of this really great film and just show the trailer. We have Maria Korcmaros, who is a survivor of white sharks. We do work with white shark survivors and other people who are bitten by sharks, and this actually transforms their entire life, and in many cases, for the good for sharks, as in the case of Maria. So she'll be on a little bit later today to talk about her own incident and how it affected her, but also how it motivated her to help save sharks with us, with Shark Stewards. So she is the chair of our Southern California chapter, where I grew up. I am now in San Francisco Bay Area, but increasingly we work in Singapore, in Indonesia and Malaysia, and also in China, trying to educate, but also interdict and intervene in the shark fin trade and create shark sanctuaries for divers to experience and celebrate sharks and enjoy them firsthand and not fear them. And so we want to remind everybody to live like a shark, keep your fins clean, wash them often, practice social distance like white sharks. They kind of hang out, but they don't touch if they can avoid it. So keep your distance and always smile. So keep up your mood, keep up your good hopes, keep up your good work, wear a mask when you go outside, donate to Shark Stewards, and you can get one of these hand-painted white shark masks. So you're always smiling and you're protecting not only yourself, but those around you and also those who you love, particularly vulnerable populations like the elderly or people with risk factors. So this is our 12th episode. If you're just tuning in, hi, I'm David. I'm the director of Shark Stewards, and we're talking about Jaws and surviving Jaws and white sharks and the impact that this pretty incredible film has had on the American and actual global psyche, and what we can do about it to sort of reverse that negative connotations and experiences and perceptions we have about sharks. Because in fact, most sharks are not man-eaters, they're not women-eaters, they're not kid-eaters. They're seal eaters, or they're fish eaters, or they're dead eaters. And so sharks are important to the health and the balance of the ocean, particularly the apex predators. But as we discussed in our episodes, not a webinar, our Ocean Action series, 1, 2, and 3, we talked about the biodiversity of sharks and the diversity of their morphology and their ecological role. So if you want to look back, go to our YouTube channel where all of these reside, and hopefully people will keep tuning in. We started these because shelter in place with COVID, we started early in San Francisco, and I'm a teacher. I do a lot of public outreach and education. I do a lot of talks about sharks and about marine protected areas and about ocean health. We were shut down like everybody else, so we recovered pretty quickly and started doing these episodes through necessity to complete some classes that I was obligated. But then we continued to just like explore and bring people in. Like last week, we had Brian Baird, who is a ocean policy advisor, and Nicole Palma from the Marine Protected Area Collaborative. We've had people from like Simon Christopher in Malaysia and Aaron Gitkoski in Indonesia, talking about sharks, talking about the ocean, talking about diving, but really collectively talk about how awesome the ocean is, how important it is to us, and why we should protect it, and how we can protect it. So that's what we do in these Ocean Action episodes, is we try to tell you how you can take action. And one of the things you can do is support Shark Stewards. Maria's birthday, Maria Korcmaros, our Southern California chair and shark survivor, is having a fundraiser for her birthday. And I really appreciate that. It's tough for all of us. I'm not unemployed. I work 7 days a week, but I'm not paid 7 days a week. And funding is down, grants are down. All donations go to support shark conservation. So if you would, they are tax deductible, and go to the top of your page or this page and help out Shark Stewards so we can continue doing these. And once we open up, which we are now, we're actually back in the field. Look at it, looking for these guys, juvenile sharks off of Santa Barbara and Ventura, and that's where I end now. So this is our 12th one from the field. We want to get in the water. We want to help out with some of this population studies, and also helping people become aware that these sharks are not out to get us. We're more likely out to get them, and why we should really embrace sharks, that sharks are not the villains, sharks are the victims. So soon, let me check to see if she's joined, not yet, Maria Korcmaros, who is a mother, a triathlete, a personal trainer, and a highly motivated woman who really impressed me with her recovery. I reached out after her shark attack in 2016, and I wanted to learn about it and follow up, as my colleague, Dr. Ralph Collier of the Shark Research Project, and who does the shark attack files. But we're concerned about human-shark interactions and the potential negative effects that it may have, not only on white sharks, but on other species. So we tend to go after these sharks in the past when white sharks weren't protected, and sometimes still, people will go out and kill these sharks in reaction to a human encounter. And we see this with other species, with tigers and bulls in Hawaii sometimes, certainly in Western Australia, where there have been calls for sharks because of concern for human safety. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can coexist, about our own responsibilities for entering their front yard, their house. We are the guests, and how we can protect ourselves as well as protecting sharks. So Maria will be joining us soon, and we're going to talk about sharks in the interim. Of course, white sharks, Carcharodon carcharias, is an incredibly charismatic marine megafauna. They're big. They can get over 4,000 pounds. The largest confirmed is around 21 feet. It's speculated they can be as long as 25 feet. I've seen one 20 feet. And let me tell you, it's impressive. They're beautiful sharks. They're important. We think they may live as long as 75, possibly longer in years. A lot of the sharks we're seeing off California are young or young of year down in Southern California, where they're pup, where the nursery is. Those sharks are under 10, 12 feet. The larger sharks tend to move north, where the larger pinniped or seal and sea lion colonies are, or the Mexican sharks are down off Guadalupe Island and some of the beaches off of northern Baja. These sharks are growing in number, but they're still relatively few. What we found through research with Stanford's tagging of pelagic predators and the Monterey Aquarium is that these sharks are actually migrating offshore every year. So right now, off of our coastline, off the Bay Area, the big sharks are gone. All the 15-footers, the mature females, the mature males, they mature around 12 feet. They head west out to what's called the White Shark Cafe, and then they come back in the fall, what we call Sharktober. And that's when Shark Stewards does a lot of education and outreach to talk about sharks, to celebrate sharks, not just white sharks, but the other 1,000 or as many as, depending if you're a lumper or a splitter, 1,150 species of sharks, skates, and rays, which make up the elasmobranchs. So Jaws was a very powerful movie. It scared a lot of people. They were terrified. We got to get a bigger boat. It was a very resonant film for some reason. And there's been a lot of books and a lot of studies and some PhDs even done on what this film has done. And perhaps it's a liken to the horror film genre, where we like to be thrilled. We get that fight or flight, that adrenaline rush, without actually getting chased by a grizzly bear or stabbed in a shower through a shower curtain, like in Psycho. So Hitchcock obviously was a master of the thrill and the suspense and the unknown. And Spielberg and the script writer that adapted Peter Benchley's novel really did an amazing job in bringing in this unknown, the scary factor. You see the shadow, you don't always see the shark. They didn't do such a good job in the following films. And Jaws had a big spin-off from Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws Revenge. Mostly they included scantily clad women, but they were increasingly ridiculous and unbelievable, whereas Jaws had this elements of reality and belief, despite that it was a mechanical shark named Bruce, named after the lawyer of the studio. And this, if you look at the film, and I encourage you to see it, maybe we'll show it online because we do silly film nights live with our groups. Maybe we'll do an online film screening. So watch for that on the Shark Stewards Facebook or Shark Stewards page. But these other films that spin off, like Sharknado, I really like Sharknado, but Two-Headed Shark, Jersey Shark, Ghost Shark, all of these silly, unbelievable films that kind of followed this wave of popularity are successful, not as successful as Jaws, but Shark Week certainly is. And I don't know how long this has been going on, probably 45 years for Jaws, at least 25 years for Shark Week, the most popular, the most watched show on Discovery Channel. And quite often it's about shark attack redo. So if you're a surfer, if you're a swimmer, if you're a kiteboarder or a water enthusiast off Southern California or Northern California, occasionally you encounter large marine megafauna. If you watch any shark movies or YouTube or internet, you see a lot of hysteria, you see a lot of things that are somewhat unbelievable, or in the case of this, a surfer and a bottlenose dolphin, not a shark, but kind of looks like it. And so a lot of misinformation and a lot of spin-off and quite often mistruths. But there are some truths, and there are white sharks that live off of the Northeast Pacific where we are, off of South America and Western Africa, off of South Australia and New Zealand. There used to be larger populations that wrapped all the way around to Japan and Korea. Those sharks are mostly gone. There used to be a population in the Mediterranean that population is extant, or not extant, sorry, extirpated or locally extinct. And also North Africa, there are very few sharks left. So we've done a pretty good job in the past 50 years or so to hunt these large species down to a point where most populations are threatened with extinction, they're vulnerable, and most are protected globally, yet they're still being killed for their fins or as bycatch. This was part of the World Surfing Pro Circuit a few years ago with Mick Fanning, where a white shark got caught up in his leash. Mick made it out okay, and he went on to win the heat. But these things do happen, and the people who are most likely to encounter a white shark are actually surfers. Off of our coastline, about 40% of white shark bites are surfers. Most fatalities are among surfers. However, there are around 20 million people off Southern California, and yet there are only 3 to 4 encounters a year. And about every other year off the entire Northeast Pacific, we have 1 death. Well, there's a lot higher risk, unfortunately, now from COVID and other factors than there are being killed by a shark. So I talked a little bit earlier about shark migrations, and the big sharks pretty much going west, some as far as Hawaii, some in this area in the center. If you look here around May, June, where we are now, and July, they're all out here in what's called the White Shark Cafe, and this comes from satellite tagging data. The younger sharks stay near the coastline. The subadults stay up a little bit farther north because they can tolerate the cold. But these larger sharks go out and they're circling around and they're diving deep, and they're feeding possibly on giant squid, other marine mammals, and we suspect they're breeding. Then during the months of around October, August, they start showing up. September, you start seeing this concentration near the Farallon Islands where we work every fall, and off of the area called the Red Triangle. And then they start leaving again in December, January. So this is an annual migration of the large sharks. The females, if they're impregnated, actually have an 18-month or so gestation, and they come back down to Southern California to give live birth. And sometimes we see larger white sharks down there, which are typically the females. And we know this from satellite tagging. So this shows a acoustic tag, a pat tag, and a spot tag, which gives satellite transmitting information. That again shows some of the tags. And this is the red triangle where I surf, where I swim, and where I dive, which has the great preponderance of human white shark encounters during the months we call Sharktober. And that is between September and November, peaking in October. So they're not all attacks, and quite frequently attack is misused and abused in the media, and it really is an investigation event or an accident. In some cases not. This is Dr. John McCosker in 1982. Louis Boren died, unfortunately. He was a knee boarder off of Pacific Grove, and he got bit by a large shark. So unfortunately, Lou didn't make it, but John and Chris Lowe and Ralph Collier and others follow up, and you can see the serrations from the teeth. You measure the teeth, you measure the jaw diameter, and you can estimate the size of the shark. This was probably a 15-foot shark, so quite large. So Dr. McCosker postulated this mistaken identity theory and a hypothesis that people went on to test with various shapes, like Pete Clemley and Scott Anderson and Peter Pylot, the Farallon Islands. So we believe that these sharks see us from underneath. They skylight us. They do not see color. They see contrast very well, and they're called ambush predators. So they come up from beneath, they swim really fast, and they bite and spit. So if you look at your screen, you'll see that there's a sea lion in this case, or a seal, and a surfer on a surfboard. Looks very much like the same shape. And then the other one is a seal on a surfboard, so he's definitely going to get bit. So we think that actually that this is a mistaken identity, that they bite, and this is why most people off our coastline survive, because the sharks don't go back for a second in most cases. There is a dispute in the scientific community, actually a debate, I should say. Some people don't believe it. Others say, well, there's evidence that they do go back, and there have been cases, and that could be territorial, because typically sharks don't eat humans. White sharks do not eat humans, they bite. But occasionally, unfortunately, as the case earlier this year of a young surfer off of near Santa Cruz, he got bit, it hit his femoral artery, and unfortunately died. And that's a sad thing. But I think what we can do is learn from these incidents and try to figure out how we can avoid them. And the California's done a really good job in developing protocols and a system of warning, of posting, of closing beaches, so that you don't have the Jaws hysteria. You don't have large economic loss, which is very serious, as we're seeing now during COVID, or when you have a beach closure during tourist season. So what's your risk? These are from the Florida Museum of Natural History, International Shark Attack File run by George Burgess. And some of these statistics are from the Center of Disease Prevention. Heart disease, if you're an American, your likelihood of death is 1 in 5. So 20% of us are gonna die from a heart attack, especially males. Accidents, less than, higher than 1% is your relative risk. Drowning, 1 in over 1,000. Lightning, 1 in 80,000. And shark attacks, 1 in 3.8 million. That's a huge disparity between your risks. So it's very, very low, but that goes across the whole population. There was a better study and a more precise study done by Stanford, by Fiorella McKelly and her colleagues, and it determined that the risk was much, much higher than 1 in 3.8 million, but still really low. So we found out a few years ago that actually selfies were much higher. There were about 180 people died from selfies 2 years ago, and there were 5 people who died from shark attacks globally out of almost 8 billion people. So the risk is really low. This guy's risk might be a little bit higher. He's probably going to die by Photoshop. So this is some of the information that was provided by our California Fish and Wildlife. in California, Department of Fish and Wildlife. Since 1900, between 1900 and 2016, there have been about 110 encounters. I think it's 112 now, and there have been now 14 fatalities. What we are seeing is that there are more non-fatal encounters, not shark bites. So this includes bumped. You can see one line is the unprovoked, which most are unprovoked. Some are provoked, meaning either they're fishermen or they're putting blood in the water or you're doing something stupid. This is all shark data. This is not white sharks. So what is the true risk? Well, calculated by Stanford. If you're a diver, you're more likely to die of decompression illness, the bends or other ailments, almost 7,000 times more likely. Scuba divers out of water enthusiasts have 1 in 136 million. Surfers had the highest of all groups, but that has remained relatively stable over time. Ocean goers in general are almost 2,000 times more likely to drown. So the real risk is drowning. So learn how to swim, listen to the lifeguard, keep a buddy near you, and your chances of surviving are high. And the chances of dying from a shark attack are really low. How do you avoid them? Don't look like shark food. Don't swim near seals or seal colonies. There have been divers, there have been swimmers in one case off San Luis Obispo. There are other cases where surfers are surfing in areas where colonies, and that's their favorite food. The sharks are patrolling these elephant seal and harbor seal and sea lion colonies off these rocky points where there's some good surf sometimes or good diving. Swim in groups, keep a buddy, just like diving. Don't act like the spaz in the water. Try to just swim cautiously, calmly, face the shark if you can, look like a predator, and get to shore. Avoid drop-offs or deep water like the Monterey Canyon, other areas we see sharks come out of the deep water, La Jolla Canyon, other areas. So if you can, during shark season, avoid these areas of high risk during the periods of high risk, which is Sharktober in California. And we think contrasting surfwear or swimwear might also attract sharks because they see contrast very well. So if you're wearing a dark wetsuit, you look more like a seal than you do if you're a dolphin clubber like me and you swim in the ocean without a wetsuit. And obey the signs. So we have a signage system at Stinson Beach that's permanent. Other state parks have precautionary information. Now there is a system of posting if there is an encounter statewide. This is run by state parks, by county health and safety, by public safety officials to advise the public that there is a risk. Chris Lowe down at the Shark Lab at Cal State Long Beach also investigates the movement of these juvenile sharks, of which we know very little, but we're seeing a lot more. So this was from a webinar that he gave about 3 weeks ago with Doug McCauley at UC Santa Barbara and Chris Menendez, who's a public safety officer in Santa Barbara. This shows how many detections that they're seeing of these tagged young of year or juvenile sharks off of Southern California. So we're seeing these little hot spots that kind of shift around. Where it used to be down up San Onofre, now they're hot spots that have moved farther north. We used to see them where near my mother lives, off Seal Beach. We call it Ray Bay because they like to eat stingrays. Now there's there's a lot of encounters my friends are telling me off Padaro Lane and off Carpinteria, where there's some fun surfing and also good swimming. And there was an incident this year on a swimmer. Luckily, it was investigated, probably by a small shark. She had a couple deep scrapes, punctures on her foot. Luckily, she's okay, and she had medical care, and she's in the water again, or will be soon. But this really shows how many detections they get, meaning these sharks are very localized. And if you look at some of the drone footage and some of the lifeguard reporting, or you look in the papers, you'll see that there are a lot of views of these white sharks in an area. That doesn't mean that there are 454,000 sharks in Surfside. That just means these sharks are swimming around and setting off the alarm, detection, detection, detection. So what it suggests is that these young sharks stay in shallow water, avoid the big sharks, which are predators. It's warmer, it's where their fishy food is, and it's also where we surf and swim. Chris also overlaid data of sharks and humans, and you see that mostly the swimmers and the bathers, the bodyboarders, are inshore where the sharks are not. Most of them stay around 100 yards out, but that's also where the surfers surf, and the bigger the surf, the farther out you are. That's another reason perhaps why we have more opportunity to encounter these sharks. So the young sharks are born here in the summer months. They grow, they're born between 4 and 6 feet, not only here, but also off Baja. They fatten up on their fish. They eat grunion also. They'll eat, they'll chase halibut. And then when they get to be about 8 to 10 feet, these subadults or these teenagers tend to transfer their feeding behavior towards marine mammals, which are fatter, have more calories, and then they kind of can endure colder temperatures and move farther north. So instead of shark attack, really the story should be attack on sharks. You know, the news headlines always read shark attack, shark bites man, shark bites woman. It really should be man bites sharks. And 25% or more of shark species globally are threatened with extinction. Likely more because we are deficient in data on many species. And this analysis was done by the IUCN, or International Union for Conservation of Nature, in 2014. So it's quite old. Maria is standing by. I'm going to let you in a second, Maria. Just going to wrap up here. And I just want to share some work we're doing. We are working in Southeast Asia, not only in trying to intervene the shark fin trade, where as many as 100 million sharks are getting killed globally still. Perhaps it's declined, but the answer really, the number is too many. So we're working with young Chinese, young Indonesians, young Malaysians, going diving, going surfing, and advocating, cleaning up beaches, and teaching respect. And I want to reach out to all of you during COVID, during this virus, which is not a Chinese virus, it came from there. We're to respect each other, to respect other cultures, to respect Black Lives Matter, to respect our own health by wearing a mask, but to respect the ocean and respect the shark. So we're working with these young people advocating for ocean change, ocean awareness, and ocean health through films and through now ocean episodes like these in Chinese. So there is hope. We still have sharks left in the ocean. As Dr. Sylvia Earle says, when you see a shark, that's a good sign. You should be scared when you don't see a shark, because that means they're declining and it's a bad symbol for ocean health. So let's celebrate sharks. Let's protect sharks like this blue shark. This is a consummately adapted, perfect predator, swims thousands of miles, doesn't harm humans unless you're putting chum in the water and your hand in the water. They're gorgeous. They're important predators. They're getting killed at the rate of 20 million a year in the shark fin trade. But there is hope because we have people like you. We have people working like with Shark Stewards, people like Maria advocating for shark conservation and ocean awareness, creating hope spots in Timor-Leste, creating shark sanctuaries like Palau, protecting our marine national monuments and our California marine protected areas here at home. So I want to share, I'm inspired by Yvon Chouinard. Patagonia is a big sponsor of Shark Stewards, big supporter. And I tell this to kids, to do something good, you actually have to do something. So get up, get away from your computer, go out, protect an ocean, save a shark, sign a petition, raise some awareness, do something good, stay healthy, protect it, and respect. You can help us. We're trying to do a U.S. shark fin trade elimination in Congress. Who knows what's going to happen? It's probably going to go to the next Congress. Hey, maybe we'll have a Senate that's a little bit more ocean aware. Maybe we'll have a president that supports ocean protection instead of ocean extraction in 2020. So this bill is it's passed the House, it's in the Senate. It's passed in Canada thanks to young Chinese like Alice Zhou, who is a shark steward, who is the star of our Alice in Borneo's Wonderland film and a future marine biologist. With Earth Island Institute, we are prepared to file suit to protect one of the largest, one of the most significant areas in the ocean that is currently protected under President G.W. Bush and expanded by President Obama. It's one of our marine national monuments, including the Papahanaumokuakea and Northwest One Islands, the Pacific Remote Islands, and Rose Atoll. These are some of the most cherished, most protected, most diverse areas in the Pacific. Probably half of the marine protected areas in the Pacific are under these monuments, of a total of 6% globally. And with a sweep of the pen, our president is trying to take this away. It's illegal, it's unethical, and it's going to expose the largest populations of healthy sharks and tuna to commercial interests. So please support us. Sign the petition at sharkstewards.org and support Earth Island's work. Join us at Guadalupe Island or Farallon Islands in the fall. Learn more about the whole ecosystems. Join us, volunteer, do social media shares, and jump in the water and save the ocean and be healthy. So thanks for watching. I'm excited to talk to Maria in a second here. I want to thank my sponsors and supporters who support Shark Stewards through grants and through donations. Check out our webpage, check out our YouTube for our other Live Like a Shark episodes. Donate if you can for Maria's birthday fundraiser. I appreciate that. We have our new logo now. I was talking about our white sharks. We've been doing a great job. We've been working since 1992, protecting these sharks. Now we're working on the endangered species, the rays, the hammerheads, sharks that are supposed to be protected internationally. We love to scuba with them, but they're declining rapidly and they need our help. So thanks for listening. Join us next week. I'm going to now invite Maria in. Okay, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks for joining us. We are live on Facebook on Shark Stewards. Here's the star of the show, Maria Korcmaros, who is we introduced earlier. I know you were with a client because you were also a personal trainer, Iron Woman, triathlete, and very motivational person.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us today.
I'm out of the sun.
Yeah, it's a little bit bright in the background, but we can see you.
I'll turn. There. That's better.
Okay, we can see you're at home.
And I brought my shark fin poster.
I saw that. Yeah, that was taken on the roof in Hong Kong by Sean Heinrichs of Blue Sphere Media, showing these sharks that have been finned. Yeah, it's terrible for the luxury shark fin suit. So we're trying to stop that through education and awareness. And you have another weird prop there, I see.
I have a little friend here.
So Live Shark Strong. Is that the?
Yeah, this is my little, my son actually got this when he was like 5. And he used to have little wrestling matches with Godzilla.
Okay.
So this is, I'm going to name him Mark the Shark.
Okay, a good Mark the Shark. Not like the killer Mark the Shark, the guy on the East Coast who is in shark water.
Yes, this guy's mad at people because we keep coming along and killing his friend.
So tell us what you're up to today.
Well, at this present moment, we're preparing for our 3rd annual Run for Sharks and Ocean Health Fair. And we're hoping to do it at the end of October. So about a year after my incident, I had this idea to do a Run for Sharks and Ocean Protection event, community event in Newport Beach area where I live in Corona, so it's quite close to me. And I decided that after being attacked by a shark that and meeting you, that I would do this race to support Shark Stewards, because we need to raise awareness for that, for the sharks out there, and for the fact that, you know, over 70 million sharks get killed every year. for the shark fin trade and all the ocean health and everything that goes along with having sharks in the ocean. And as I learn more and more about sharks, I realize that they're integral to the health of the ocean. And without sharks on the reef, without sharks in the water, we wouldn't have a very healthy ocean.
Great. Yeah. So this will be the third annual, and hopefully for the run's sake, but also for the kids' sake, especially kids will be back in school safely, that we will be able to do this in October for the third year. I mean, I feel so bad for the kids. You know, it's hard on all of us, but especially the kids having to stay home from school, and all that energy that usually is spent outside, hopefully not in front of a screen all the time, they're experiencing now. So we hope to do that in Newport Back Bay in October, TBD, right? Date to be announced. I guess that'd be TBA. And so we can get out there and do let's see, it's a 5K and a 1 mile. I mean, a 5K and a what? I forget.
1 mile. 1 mile. Yeah.
And it's also, people can do a relay, and also we have a virtual run.
We do. Yeah. So in all cases, if everything goes and we have to stay at home, we're going to do a virtual version because we want to fit it in this year and we want to get raise that awareness. So either way, we're going to have it. It's either going to be virtual or on site, but you're always going to have the virtual option, even if it's going to be on site. So we can tell everybody on Facebook that we know from one side of the country to the other and overseas, and they can do it in their own backyard.
Great. And they can learn about ocean health, also reduce risks to the ocean health by plastic pollution reduction and cleanups, and a health fair. So we have the main sponsor, KPMC, right? Which
KPC
is
Health.
KPCM, sorry. KPCM, I'm glad I asked you, which is part of the hospital that helped treat you. So why don't we go into your story and talk a little bit about how we got here talking today, because you are a shark survivor.
Yes, I am. So as you can see there on the screen, I had an incident with a shark on May 29th, 2016. And it was actually close to Newport Beach area in a place called Corona del Mar, which is a very nice beach area. And we, as triathletes, we swim there all the time for training. And I was there Memorial Day weekend, coming with my family. My youngest son and my husband were on the beach, and I decided to get some swim training in. So I just went out to the buoy line to get my swim training in. I was the only person in the water. Everybody else was on the beach. There was about 1,000 people on the beach or more. It was pretty busy. Wow. So I went out to the first buoy, and usually I swim all 4, but that day I just decided to go to number 3 because it was kind of wavy. And so I was thinking maybe 30 minutes in the water or so. I circled around number 3, and as I approached number 2, I felt some piercing pain in my side. And I basically said to myself, holy whatever, my coach was right, there are sharks in the water. And I knew pretty instantly that I got bit by a shark. And so lucky for me, there's a lifeguard boat there, which they are not there very often. The many times I would swim there, I'd swim there maybe 1 to 2 times a week since I moved here in 2009. I've probably seen them 3 times. So I saw them, I knew they were there when I started. So immediately when I got bit, my instinct was to call for help, to tread water and call for help. So I raised my arms in the air, I screamed, get me out, get me out. And the sound of my voice and the loudness of my voice and just my arms in the air attracted their attention. And they came over. I was extremely lucky, I tell you, because for me to swim to shore from that distance, it's about 200 yards. And I found out later with my arm injured the way it was and bleeding out. And with seawater, your blood kind of bleeds out a lot faster. And then I learned later from you that sharks, especially great white sharks, they circle around and usually come back to take another bite out of their prey. And if that had happened, it could have been, I could have died easily, or just getting to shore, I could have died. So it was a pretty severe bite on the middle of my torso. And lucky for me, it hit my ribs and my pelvis, which are the hardest bones in my body. And it let go, and because it's used to biting down on a seal, and seals are very fatty and gushy feeling. So as a juvenile, it was probably wondering what the heck it bit into. But again, as a juvenile, it could have come back around. So I'm thinking with the boat there and the engine revving, it probably got distracted and decided not to come back. So I was extremely lucky on that part too.
Yeah, indeed. And we talked a little bit earlier about the state notification system that has actually, and it may even been a result of your incident. I mean, I know that you work with and befriend other shark survivors, and we swam and met Stephen Robles and Leah and Keen and down in San Diego. But since 2014, there's really been a lot of interest. Chris Lowe has received a lot of money through a state bond to do some of this research, but also so have public safety. So fortunately, you know, there was a lifeguard nearby, and they were trained in emergency response, and you were taken. And were you airlifted to the hospital, or were you taken?
No, so the picture you see there is where they actually took me to get the EMS crew to pick me up to go to the hospital. So what they did was they went around Balboa Pier and into the harbor, and they went to the Coast Guard docking area. So what they do in Newport on the rescue boats that pick people up, they call ahead to get the EMS people to meet you wherever they're going to drop you. And then the EMS loads you in the truck and takes you to the nearest trauma unit. So the nearest trauma unit was Orange County Global, which is part of KPC Health, who is our main sponsor now for the run. And so as my lifeguards pull me up to the dock there, EMS was coming down with their full kit to check me out. And they basically said, turn around. We got to get her in the ambulance right away. We need to take her to the hospital right away because she is in serious condition. So I was loaded into ambulance right away, and they just took off for the hospital.
Okay, well, that was fortunate. I mean, that's one of the reasons that most people survive, especially in Southern California, because there is emergency response near and there is a system in place. Other areas that are more remote, like Western Australia, some of the remote coastlines in Northern California, if people can't get that immediate care, they unfortunately do not survive. But others, like my friend Eric Larson, who was bit in the, gosh, what was it? It must have been the 80s now or 90s. Surfing off Davenport, he tied off his leash on his leg. He got bit in the leg. That's off just north of Santa Cruz. There was nobody around. He had to kind of drag himself until he found some people walking a dog. And fortunately, he didn't bleed out. But we have to thank the emergency responders, but also now a lot of people who are really thinking about public safety and science and trying to combine the two. Where are the sharks? Where are they frequenting? What's their behavior like? How can we alter our behavior? So here's some of those responders there, and they were given awards. And there's Dr. Lowe, who investigated your encounter with your wetsuit, which in this case might have helped create the incident, but also probably helped you and maybe minimize some of the bleeding. But it looks like they cut it off, and then he's measuring the gap in the bite and usually the size of the tooth wound, and they can then we can predict the size of the shark.
Yeah, and they also had pictures of my
graphic content, everybody. I'm going to warn you. I took some of your other ones out, but
that's okay.
You can see where you were bit in the torso there, and also got your tricep. Right. So the shark came in and actually bit twice, doubled on you.
Yeah. So the first bite is upper, and then that bigger, wider one at the bottom is the second bite. And he also, that was pre-surgery, so he actually measured the bite mark, the width of it, and then the width between the teeth. Mm-hmm. And then on the wetsuit, he actually got DNA off the wetsuit.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had a pretty quick recovery, actually, compared to many. And being an athlete with discipline, you were out of the hospital. You were in the hospital for 9 days.
9 days, yeah.
Which is a pretty long time. It's a serious injury. 161 staples and 7 stitches, which you now wear around your neck. Do you still wear it around your neck?
I do, but today I have your hook on.
Oh, cool! Right, our one less shark hook.
One less shark hook. Yeah, you gave me for my birthday. So
thank you, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
So you actually had a big support group, which is really important. Your sons and your husband helped you heal, and you got back in the water. And as an athlete, when was the first time you got back in the water? And tell us what that was like.
Yeah, so the first time I got back in the water, my bite was in May, as I said. I recovered in June at my house. My parents actually flew in. And then in July, I went to Canada. I got back in the water in Canada, it was just a river. And once I could get back there and felt comfortable that I could actually swim, because I could only do the breaststroke because my arm had no range of motion whatsoever. And then when I got home, I was like, okay, I got to get back in the water. I have a race to do in October that I didn't want to miss because I'd already paid my dues and everything. So I said to myself, if I can get on the bike, if I can get back in the water, I can get to that race. So I decided in September, once I started riding, I decided in September I'd get back in the water. So I decided to go next door to where I got bit in Corona del Mar, and it's called Little Corona. Unfortunately, it's in the Bay Area. It's where the boats come in after being out in the ocean. So it's a protected area, more protected than, if you're out in the open ocean. It's sandy bottom. You can see right to the bottom. It's very clear. So I went there with a couple of friends of mine, and they said, we'll swim on the outside. You swim on the inside, wherever you're comfortable. And I said, great. So, but it really freaked me out just getting in the water. And I remember just swimming this small little buoy line in about 6 feet of water. And as I was swimming, I came upon a bunch of seaweed or kelp at the bottom. And as soon as I saw that dark shape, I basically jumped in the water because it freaked me out. And I thought it was something like, your brain just goes there. So I jumped in the water while I was swimming. I got up, looked around, made sure there was no fins around, and I kept swimming. And so I did that 3 times. And the second time I went, it was actually foggy, which really freaked me out. And then the third time I went, I was swimming and there was another guy in the water playing with his kids. And my friends again are there. And I'm swimming along and I'm feeling totally comfortable because there's more people in the water. But all of a sudden, he threw one of his kids in the air and they just landed with a big splash. And again, I jumped in the water, I got out, I looked around, and I realized it was just him playing with his kid. And now I try and swim in the ocean as much as I can, given that I'm in the Inland Empire. I have about a 45-minute drive. But as a shark survivor and meeting other shark survivors, especially in Southern California, Stephen Robles is an ocean swimmer. Leanne Erickson, who got bit about a year after I did, she's a lover of the ocean. Her boyfriend is a surfer. She's a bodyboarder. And then Keem Weber Hayes, he's the young man who got bitten in Encinitas 2 years later. He's a surfer. He's a free diver. We all love the ocean. We all got back in. But the big thing we understand as survivors is we're always looking for sharks. We're always aware that there are sharks in the water. So we get ourselves knowledgeable enough by talking to people like you or associating ourselves with people that know about the ocean and say to ourselves, you know what, the chances of us getting bitten again is going to be pretty remote, because even the chance of us getting bit once was very remote. So we've all had the courage to get back into the water to support each other in that venture. Because when I got back at Corona del Mar for the first time, it was actually last year on my anniversary. And Keen came out, like you had said, Leanne and Stephen came out, all to swim with me and to get me to have the courage to go back in. And it was a really great support group and event to have all those people around you and to say, you know what, Maria, we're going to be with you. We're going to support you. We're going to get you back in. And that's why I've I've been a big supporter around here of all the shark survivors and getting together and saying, you know, if you need any help, if you want to contact me, I'm available for you. And we also are members of a bike club page on Facebook, which is all shark survivors and family. So we all support each other wherever we are in the world, with our incident and with getting back in the water and with being comfortable again, you know, just doing a daily life, because it does impact your life from the moment it happens and for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah, it's very traumatic. And I don't think a lot of people realize, they think about the actual incident, but it is traumatic. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot, and I have with other survivors and people who have PTSD. They need to work through the beyond the physical injury. But here you are making fun of it with your Mark the Shark on your back and your torn wetsuit, inspiring a group of swimmers. So you've definitely got back in the pool, and you've got back on the race course, and you became an advocate supporting shark conservation. So this is in 2016 with your son, Lucas. Here we are together advocating for, at the time, it was the 11th shark fin ban that we introduced in Nevada that also protects manta ray gills. So banning the shark fin trade, you came out. People are more interested in listening to you than they are to me. Boring science, statistics, you know. So it's intriguing. Your story is motivating and very inspirational. And now you're our chair and introducing me to these people. You just mentioned Stephen and Leanne and Keen, who are all survivors, and you have this network, which I think is really great, because I haven't experienced, well, I have a little bit, just on my ankle, by a baby reef shark, which it was more scared of me, I think, than I was scared of it. But people who have serious trauma like this, and to work with each other and to get back in the water, right? And to also use that experience in our Run for Sharks and other outreach efforts that we do, you and I do with scuba divers. You learn how to scuba dive. How does that feel? How does it feel to be under the water, more like a shark, than on top of the water, more like a seal?
Well, you know, it's a lot of fun going underwater. I've always been a snorkeler. I've always been a swimmer. And when I came to California from Texas area, and I'm actually from Canada originally, I was always a fisher person. We had a cottage, so we swam every weekend. And getting underwater is just truly fascinating, because I watched Mutual of Omaha, like I'm 50 something. So I watched Mutual of Omaha first. And then when National Geographic came out and all the amazing shows they have, it was so cool to see all the underwater wonder that is available to us to appreciate and enjoy. And my son was a scuba diver first. And when I got bit, he basically said to me, "Mom, you're prey on top of the water, and under the water, you're part of the ocean." And I said, "Geez, son, thank you so much." And that was Lucas. And, you know, he's a scuba diver first. So, and my brother is a scuba diver. So I thought to myself, you know what, let's get underwater. Let's go diving with David. Let's go diving with Sam and Lucas. We call him Sam because that's his middle name. And dive with my brother and just learn about the ocean and appreciate the ocean for all the wondrous stuff it has under there. Because I'm a nature person. I love to get up close to nature and see nature for what it is and for the wonder that it is. And getting underwater, going scuba diving, and especially with experienced people like you and Gretchen, and, you know, you can, and all those other divers that I know that have been diving for forever, just going to Catalina in this area here, there's a marine protected area in Catalina, and I've seen fish underwater, just beautiful fish, and seals and even cormorants diving underwater. And just to be up close and see them is just really fascinating. And then to look up from there and see the kelp and how big it is, and just see the sun shining down, it's something you never forget. So I plan on doing more dives and getting more experience. So next time I go to Indonesia, possibly with you and your group, I can really be comfortable underwater, because right now it's a little, you know, it's a learning experience, and I have to get better at buoyancy and all that other fun stuff. But it is a wonderful experience, and I plan to do more and be able to eventually swim with sharks
Well,
underwater.
yeah, in Indonesia, we can go where it's warm and clear, and they're nice little reef sharks that we know where they are, and we're protecting them and the reef they live on. And they're not going to bite you. They're actually more afraid of you than you could possibly be of them. And it's yeah, I mean, well said. It really is an amazing experience to be underwater, and it's why we work with divers, because they get it. As Sylvia Earle says, if you don't, or if you want to really change the world, I'm paraphrasing here, bring a kid to the ocean and show the wonder of the ocean to the kid, but the kid will also show the wonder of the ocean back to you through the kid's eyes. And if you don't have a kid, borrow a kid. And I add one more step: take a kid and put their head underwater, maybe teach them scuba first, but show them that. And I think that's going to create this world of people who love the ocean and don't just understand it when it's on a plate. So it's not just that. It's not just diving. It's, you know, we do a lot of education together with Jim Sherpa down there in Orange County with Shark Artifacts, cleaning beaches up, raising awareness, and even just getting kids out in nature with the 100-mile club running. And hopefully maybe we'll have a 100-hour club scuba diving and diving underwater. So maybe this fall we could do a dive together. Shark Stewards is planning to do a dive in Mendocino, or I guess Sonoma with Bamboo Reef. So we're going to be off one of our marine protected areas in a couple weeks in June. And it's a little bit rougher water than what you're used to, but it's in one of our state marine protected areas that has some of the best fish and the best wildlife because it's protected. And not so many sharks, but we see rays and sometimes a little horn shark or a swell shark or some of the other diversity that we have off of our California coastline. So our run is going to be coming up in fall, hopefully before too long. It was great to see you a couple of weeks ago. I'll be back down. We're still in the field here in Ventura, going back to the Bay Area this weekend. But let's do a dive or a swim in Corona del Mar or Crystal Cove this coming in July. But here's some other things that people can do, right? We can join us on Shark Stewards volunteering. And I love that, turning fear into fascination. Help support us in Southern California. You can go to sharkstewards.org, our homepage, and link to info@sharkstewards.org, and we'll give that information to Maria, or contact me, or contact us. Follow you on Facebook or Shark Stewards and Instagram. And so we're going to end this with a little clip from Jaws celebrating the 45th. Of course, it's ridiculous. And I think this is what we need to watch this film, because you realize how terrifying it might have been, but how really silly it is and how unrealistic the shark is. But a lot of great lines came out of the film.
You heard him. Slow ahead.
Of course, there's Robert Shaw, who did an amazing
Slow
job.
ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
There's Bruce.
There he is. He's a little shocked there.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll sign off. Thanks again, Maria. I'll see you next week on Facebook.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.